Good morning. We are gathering today both virtually and in person as one connected community. This is the Northwest Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Jim Moyer, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'll be your worship leader this morning. And I am joined by Rev Cassandra Hartley and Alex Myers on the piano. If you are a visitor online and would like Northwest to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form appearing in the chat box. If you are with us in person, you can fill out the visitor sign-in form in the atrium. Please greet your neighbors with a wave from wherever you are. And the camera is right over there. We have the usual tiny list of announcements for today. You can find more information about it on the Northwest website and in our weekly newsletter. This month, all of our worship services will be here at Northwest starting at 10:30. That includes a joint worship with Detroit, who will be visiting us here next week. We will have a congregational meeting on October 27 after church. At that meeting, we will make decisions on continuing the joint ministry with First UU Detroit and extending the current board terms to align with the fiscal year. Meeting packets will be available soon. The governance task force will also present a high-level view of its plan at the congregational meeting. Anyone with questions about the proposed changes can also attend a virtual Q&A session on October 17 at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Everyone in the congregation is invited to engage in a circle practice with a soup dinner on October 24 in person at Northwest. Using a structured listening method, we will focus on all the changes that have happened in our community since the start of the COVID shutdown. Our service auction is coming up November 2nd. This next Sunday is the last day for donations. For more information or ideas on what to donate, please see Ariana Abel or Martha Spear for more information. There will be a service auction table during social hour. Now, before we begin our prelude, let's all take a deep breath and settle in to a time of worship. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith. We light it knowing that this morning many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across this land and around the world are doing the same. We light our chalice with words from Northwest UU's mission statement. Please repeat after me. We light this flame to grow in spirit, knowledge, and action. Accept and challenge one another to support each other in times of joy and need.
Each week, this congregation offers a land acknowledgement. We honor and pay our respects to the land on which we live and work, which was violently stolen through colonialism, genocide, and forced removal of its traditional stewards. These stewards are the Anishinaabe, the Council of the Three Fires, which include the Ottawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi, also known as the Ottawa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi tribes. We also acknowledge the people of African descent who were forcibly removed from their land and separated from their families through kidnapping and enslavement, and pay reverence and respect to them for building this country's infrastructure and economy with no compensation or reparations to date. Please join us now and rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Rosh Hashanah is a two-day celebration of the Jewish New Year, which literally translates to head of the year in Hebrew. During Rosh Hashanah, we commemorate God's creation of the world and ask God for forgiveness for things we have done during the year. It's a time for prayer, good deeds, and reflecting on past mistakes. When is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day celebration that usually occurs in September, but is sometimes held in October. What happens during Rosh Hashanah? Unlike New Year's celebrations held on December 31st, Rosh Hashanah is a somber holiday filled with prayer and self-reflection. Many Jewish people spend much of the holiday in prayer at a synagogue. The shofar, which is a curved ram's horn, gets blown during prayer services. The shofar is symbolic and represents a wake-up call to reflect on personal lives, focus on repentance, and explore ways to become better people. After the religious services, many will return home for a festive meal with symbolic food. Meals during Rosh Hashanah typically consist of challah bread, which symbolizes the cycle of the year, pomegranates, which symbolize being fruitful, apples dipped in honey, which symbolize a sweet new year, and the head of the fish, which symbolizes the prayer, "Let us be the head and not the tail." It is customary to greet each other by wishing each other a Happy New Year. There are several ways to do this, but the most common phrase is Shana Tova. Why is Rosh Hashanah a Jewish festival? Rosh Hashanah is a Jewish high holy day. On this day, Jewish people believe that God looks at each of them to see what they have done, good and bad, in the previous year. Overall, there are only 2 holy days, with the second being Yom Kippur, which occurs 10 days after the new year. What is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur, also known as the Day of Atonement, focuses on forgiveness, fasting, prayer, confession, and community. It is considered to be the time when our souls are closest to God. When is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur takes place 10 days after Rosh Hashanah. What happens during Yom Kippur? Based on the teachings of the Torah, Jewish people fast on the Day of Atonement. It is believed that if Jewish people fast on Yom Kippur, they will be forgiven for their sins and cleansed by God. To prepare for fasting, there is a festive meal served to all family members, which is the concluding meal before the Yom Kippur fast. On the eve of Yom Kippur, Jewish families gather together at the synagogue and recite verses from the Torah. At prayer services, men and women often wear traditional clothing to mark Yom Kippur, such as a kiddle, which is a long white garment for evening prayers. The Yom Kippur observance lasts 25 hours, beginning with the lighting of 2 candles 18 minutes before sunset with prayers of blessings. After Yom Kippur ends, many Jewish people have a break the fast celebration, which may be held at a synagogue or home. This is a time to eat and spend time with friends and family. This time of the year is a great opportunity to learn more about Judaism and the wonderful Jewish New Year festivities. For resources related to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, head to twinkle.com. Shana Tova!
Now our youth will take their own chalice, lit from the flame in our sanctuary, and join their groups. And I invite you to join us in singing the children's blessing, and you're invited to rise as our youth and our teachers leave the sanctuary.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice. That
Each week, Northwest UU shares its plate contribution with a community partner. This month, that partner is Building Better Men. Founded in 1991 in Southeast Detroit, they mentor males ages 8 to 18, showing them that they can be successful despite challenges associated with absent or uninvolved fathers. They have programs that focus on life skills, literacy, and college and career readiness. All undesignated donations will be split between the Building Better Men and our congregation. You can give in a variety of ways that are now visible on your screen. For those here in person, we will pass a collection basket for checks and cash.
Hello, my name is Dave Young. I'm a member of Northwest Pastoral Care Committee. I want to remind you that anyone needing the support of our community can reach out to our Minister of Pastoral Care, Reverend Teresa Rowick, in the weekly drop-in Zoom room or on one-on-one appointments by emailing pastoralcare@northwestuu.org. For the next few months, the collective cares of our community will be recorded in our Book of Joys and Sorrows, which will remain on the red cabinet near the name tags out front. I'll read the Joys and Sorrows now, written in the book today. When I announce your name, please raise your hand. Note that we'll have a virtual form available soon for those attending on Zoom. Let's see, first one. Mary Mueller? All right, very good. It's a reminder, there'll be a memorial service for Kathy Scherf. It's next Saturday, October 12th at 1 o'clock here in WUU. Also for Mary, tomorrow is the anniversary of the Hamas attack in Israel and the beginning of the Israeli-Gaza war. My heart hurts for all those who have been killed, maimed, displaced, and traumatized by the war in the Middle East. For these and the joys and sorrows that are held in silent sanctuary of our hearts, I offer this prayer. Sources of radiance and resilience, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this night. May the suffering be soothed. May the sick be tended. May the weary find rest. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. And may all know that we are surrounded in a love that is with us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. May we take a few moments of silence to be with each other in the sacred space. come out singing Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading this morning comes from the author Glennon Doyle. In her memoir entitled Untamed, she writes, I am a sensitive, introverted woman, which means that I love humanity, but actual human beings are tricky for me. I love people, but not in person. For example, I would die for you, but not like meet you for coffee. I became a writer so that I could stay home alone in my pajamas, reading and writing about the importance of human connection and community. It's an almost perfect existence. Except that every so often, while I'm thinking my thoughts, writing my words, living in my favorite spot, which is deep inside my own head, something stunning happens. A siren-like noise tears through my home. I freeze. It takes me a solid minute to understand. The siren is the doorbell. A person is ringing the doorbell. I run out of my office to find my children also stunned, frozen, and waiting for direction about how to respond to this imminent home invasion. We stare at each other, count bodies, and collectively cycle through the 5 stages of doorbell grief. Stage number 1, denial. This cannot be happening. All of the people allowed to be in this house are already in the house. Maybe it was the TV. Is the TV on? Step 2, anger. Who does this? What kind of boundaryless aggressor rings someone's doorbell in broad daylight? Step 3, bargaining. Don't move, don't breathe. Maybe they'll just go away. Step 4, depression. Why? Why us? Why anyone? Why is this so hard? And finally, stage 5, acceptance. Okay, you, the little one, we volunteer you. Put on some pants, go act normal and answer the door. It's dramatic, but the door always gets answered. If the kids aren't home, sometimes I'll even answer it myself. Is this because I remember that adulting requires door answering? Of course not. I answer the door because of the sliver of hope in my heart that if I open the door, there might be a package waiting for me. A package. When I got sober after years of drinking, I learned that hard feelings are like doorbells that interrupt me, send me into a panic, and then leave me with an exciting package. Sobriety is a decision to stop numbing and blaming away hard feelings and to start answering the door. So when I quit drinking, I began allowing my feelings to disturb me. This was scary because I had always assumed that my feelings were so big and powerful that they would stay forever and eventually kill me. But my hard feelings didn't stay forever, and they did not kill me. Instead, they came and went, and afterward, I was left with something I didn't have before. That something was self-knowledge. Hard feelings rang my bell and then left me with a package filled with brand spanking new information about myself. This new information was always exactly what I needed to know about myself to take the next step in my life with confidence and creativity. It turned out what I needed most was inside the one place I'd been running from my entire life: pain. Everything I needed to know next was inside the discomfort of now. For years after I found out about my ex-husband's serial infidelity, I was, of course, deeply angry. He did everything that could be asked of a person who has hurt someone. He apologized profusely, began therapy, and was unwaveringly patient. I did all the right things too. I went to therapy, prayed, committed myself to trying to forgive. Sometimes when I watched him with the children, my anger would fade and I'd feel relieved and hopeful for our future. But every time I tried to make myself physically or emotionally vulnerable to him, rage would flood my body. I'd lash out at him and then shut down and retreat back into myself. This pattern was exhausting and depressing for both of us, but I didn't know what to do other than wait for forgiveness to eventually be bestowed upon me by the heavens as a reward for my steadfast suffering. One evening, Craig and I were sitting on opposite sides of our family room couch. He was happily watching TV while I silently fumed at him. Somehow, I was able to lift my perspective and look down at us. There I was, fired up with fury, and there Craig was, undisturbed and utterly unaware that I was miserable. I thought, how can this anger be about him? He can't even feel it. This is happening inside my body. If this anger is in me, I'm going to assume it is for me. From that moment on, whenever anger arose, I practiced staying open and curious. I sat with it. I let it be. My anger and I hung out and listened to each other. I asked my anger questions like, what are you trying to tell me? Not about him, but about me. I also started paying close attention to patterns in my body, because my body often clarifies for me what my mind is too convoluted and hopeful to accept. Bodies won't lie, even when we beg them to. I noticed that anger flooded my body whenever I opened myself to Craig emotionally or physically. My anger lifted completely when I watched him with the children. Before I started paying close attention, I thought this meant I was flip-flopping. But over time, I began to understand that my anger wasn't arbitrary. It was incredibly specific. My anger was repeating, Glennon, for you, familial intimacy with Craig is safe. Physical and emotional intimacy are not. I knew this. My body knew this. And I had been ignoring what I knew. And that is why I was so angry. I was angry at myself. Craig was the one who strayed, yes, but I was the one who decided day after day to stay married, vulnerable, and angry. Maybe instead of forever repeating, how could he have abandoned me? I needed to ask, why do I keep abandoning myself? Eventually, I decided to stop abandoning myself, which meant honoring my anger. I didn't need to prove to anyone else whether leaving was right or wrong. I didn't need to justify my anger anymore. What I needed to do was forgive the father of my children. And I was able to do that as soon as I divorced him. Now, I have friends who did find safety and forgiveness inside their marriage after infidelity. But what comes after betrayal cannot be striving, contorting, or suffering to honor an arbitrary idea of right or wrong. What comes next must be an honoring of the self. We must disregard the should out there and face what is real in here. If constant anger is what is real in here, we must address it, both for ourselves and for the other. Relief from anger is not something that is just bestowed upon us. It often must be forged by us. Anger delivers important information about where one of our boundaries has been crossed. When we answer the door and accept that delivery, we begin to know ourselves better. When we restore the boundary that was violated, we honor ourselves. And when we know ourselves and honor ourselves, then we can live with integrity, peace, and power. Please join me now and rise in body or in spirit in singing number 18, What Wondrous Love.
much bliss, and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's crown, friends to be gathered round, oh my soul, friends to be gathered round, oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks until the end, I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end, I will sing.
A few months ago, I was looking for a particular photo, so I pulled out my memory box. Sorting through the layers of old photos, mementos, cards, and letters was like an archaeological dig through my life. And of course, I quickly got sidetracked, awing at the pictures of the kids as babies, laughing at the cards my best friend sent, crying over a funeral program for a loved one. And then I came across a letter that truly stopped me in my tracks. It was from a couple of years ago, and it was sent by someone who had hurt me deeply 2 years before that. As I reread it, I was reminded that this letter was everything anyone who has ever been hurt or betrayed could hope for. The person reflected on how their actions had impacted me and my family, showing that they had thought about our feelings and perspectives. They took accountability for everything they had done and shared the concrete actions they were taking to work on themselves. They offered the insights they had gained about their previous behavior, but they were also clear that these were not excuses. They wrote that they truly wished me well and expected nothing out of me in response to this letter. It was exactly what I needed, and reading it at the time repaired our relationship to the point that we were able to resume contact. In recent months, we've even become close friends again. The letter was a beautiful reminder of the healing that's possible in relationships with time and hard work on both sides. But I was also reminded that we don't always get that kind of closure or repair, the kind that we hope for when we hurt someone or they hurt us. More often than not, as Glennon Doyle puts it in our reading today, we have to forge our own healing. This was important to reflect on because just that week, once again, someone I cared about had done some incredibly hurtful things. Once again, anger had rung my doorbell when I was least expecting it and left me with a big package. To be honest, my first reaction was to be angry that I was angry. I wanted to kick this package across the street, slam the door, and go write a lengthy complaint to customer service. Did I know from past experiences that I would eventually find something helpful if I was willing to open the box and sift through it? Absolutely. But I also knew that it was going to be hard, because anger, the kind that comes from being deeply hurt or violated or betrayed, can be one of the hardest emotions to be with. There are many reasons for this, including that we often get unhealthy or confusing messages about anger and how to deal with it. Some families allow anger to be expressed, and children are taught how to express it in positive, empowering ways. But many of us grew up in families where anger was not an acceptable emotion to feel, or it was expressed in violent or coercive ways, or it was held onto in the form of grudges or passive aggressiveness. and so on. Our wider culture also often paints anger as an emotion that must be suppressed or punished because it's dangerous. And yet, news cycles and people in power, including certain politicians, purposely stoke anger as a way to get attention and control. This is especially true in the midst of a challenging election season. All these different messages about anger can sometimes leave us with a fraught relationship with anger itself, which only adds to the pain we're feeling. The pain can be so overwhelming that we immediately want to lash out, to get revenge or take it out on someone or something. And many people do exactly that. On the opposite side of the spectrum, some people completely suppress their anger. This is often applauded by our wider culture as a positive thing to do, but it can lead to physical and mental health problems down the road, including struggles with anxiety and depression. There is a middle way, though, a way that asks us to embrace our anger and journey with it for a while. It can be a long and hard process, but at the end of it, we can find more healing and empowerment than we ever thought possible. That journey begins by acknowledging that anger affects us physically. And this might seem like a strange place to start, but our bodies process and hold emotions in important ways. When we get angry, our body releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Our heart races, our muscles tense, our digestion slows down, our focus sharpens. These changes and many more make up what we often call the fight or flight response that we evolved to help us survive danger. When we're able to move through the fight or flight response and come out safely on the other side, our body is able to shake off the stress and restabilize fairly well. But that was easier to do, strangely, when we were wild animals facing fairly straightforward dangers. Now we have much more complex lives, but our bodies are still reacting to our many emotional and relational stresses as if it were life or death. When I'm counseling someone who is struggling with anger, it's common to hear them talk about going into a blind rage or feeling completely out of control, out of their bodies. This often leads to feelings of fear or shame afterward, which then makes it more likely that they'll get angry and defensive again down the road. So I remind them that first, they are not inherently bad or angry people. They're people whose past experiences of pain are making them perceive danger in situations where it doesn't necessarily exist. Their bodies are trying to protect them, including shutting down the rational thinking parts of their brains so that they can react quickly. We can work with the mind and body so that the person's more empowered to react in healthier ways going forward, but it first starts by removing that shame. It's also important to understand that anger affects us physically because even if we don't lose control in the midst of a challenging situation, that energy of fight or flight has to be discharged. In other words, unless you actually fled a lion or wrestled a bear to the ground, it's likely you'll have some energy that needs someplace to go. Sometimes this means taking a long walk, or going to the gym, or screaming in your car. Sometimes it means honoring that you need a nap or a hot bath when your adrenaline crashes. More often than not, this cycle of fight and flight and then crash will happen over and over again as you process your experiences over time. It's physically draining, but it does pass with time if we honor our bodies and trust that they're doing what they're designed to do. The next part of journeying with anger is to find emotional healing. Anger, like any emotion, is an invitation to stop and reflect inward. As we do this, we first have to unravel what kind of anger it is. The therapists Julie Fraga and Hilary Hendel created the terms core anger and defensive anger to help explain the difference. They define core anger as a response to a violation, while defensive anger is a cover-up for other, more vulnerable feelings. When someone violates something sacred to us, whether that's our trust or our boundaries or our values, it's incredibly painful. But this core anger also points us to what we care most about, and it can give us the energy to act, to change things. This might take the form of doing social justice work, ending an unhealthy relationship, or even just saying a hard thing that needs to be said. In her poem entitled Anger is a Woman, Jan Richardson describes her version of core anger this way. Anger is a woman who has learned that pleasantness is not the way to peacefulness, that silence is not the way to strength. Anger is a woman who has learned to breathe from her belly, who waits at your door bringing you offerings, who knows your true name and gives it back to you. She has lived on the streets. She knows prisons and alleys and mud. She has seen hungry children and broken women and desperate men, and spoken to them in their own tongues. They gave her a song. She sings it to you. This core anger is an anger that can fill us with strength and resolve. Defensive anger, on the other hand, can make us feel small and vulnerable. But if we sit with it long enough, it can offer its own powerful lessons. Once we're able to uncover the feelings that our defensive anger is covering up, we can get to the roots of what needs healing. More often than not, what defensive anger is covering up is sadness or shame, and those feelings need our attention. The final part of journeying with anger is to find spiritual healing. Many spiritual traditions have teachings encouraging us to resist or avoid anger. For example, the Sufi teacher Ehsan Moteged said, "If a man removes his bitterness, he becomes human. Otherwise, he becomes an animal." The revered Torah scholar Maimonides taught that there is no middle way when it comes to anger. Instead, he said we must avoid it under any circumstance and go to the opposite extreme. In Matthew 5:22 in the Christian scriptures, it reads, "But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to counsel. And whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to the hellfire." It makes sense that so many spiritual teachings view anger as dangerous because it can motivate reckless or hurtful behavior. And it makes sense that they would urge us not to hold on to anger until it turns into resentment. Because as the saying goes, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The antidote to anger in many spiritual traditions is, of course, forgiveness. Forgiveness is important because it can offer us release from the prison that resentment can create. But not everyone wants to find forgiveness or is ready. And even when forgiveness is desired, it's not necessarily something in our control. A study on victimized people and their healing process revealed that forgiveness was not something they could force to happen. And then in fact, the harder they tried, the more resentful they became. But when they stopped trying and just let go, then with time they discovered that somehow they had already forgiven. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron echoes this idea of letting go in her essay entitled, "The Answer to Anger and Aggression is Patience." She writes, "Everyone who is born and dies from the beginning of time until the end of time is naturally going to want some kind of resolution to the edgy, moody energy of anger. And there isn't any. The only resolution is temporary and just causes more suffering. We discovered that as a matter of fact, joy and happiness, peace, harmony, and being at home with yourself and your world come from sitting still with the moodiness of the energy until it rises, dwells, and passes away. The energy never resolves itself into something solid. You can see that holding on increases the pain, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to let go because there's a lot at stake. What's at stake is your whole sense of who you are, your whole identity. You're beginning to move into the territory of egolessness, the insubstantial nature of oneself and of everything for that matter. Theoretical, philosophical, distant-sounding teachings can get pretty real when you're beginning to have an inkling of what they're actually talking about. It takes a lot of patience not to beat up on yourself for being a failure at letting go. But if you apply patience to the fact that you can't let go, somehow it helps you to do it. Patience with the fact that you can't let go helps you to get to the point of letting go gradually, at a very sane and loving speed, at the speed your basic wisdom allows you to move. It's a big moment even to get to the point where you realize you have a choice. Patience is what you need at that point, to just wait and soften. I love this passage from Chodron so much, especially the phrase, letting go gradually at a very sane and loving speed, at the speed at which your basic wisdom allows you to move. This phrase perfectly summarizes the tender self-compassion and patience we have to bring to our journey with anger. I know I return to these words for comfort and guidance during my own more recent experience. When I had gotten done throwing a temper tantrum about the fact that anger had rung my doorbell again, I did reluctantly open the package, and I got to work. Sometimes this work meant actively forging my healing by taking care of my physical body, doing self-reflection to understand and process my emotions, setting strong boundaries with the person who hurt me, and committing to taking the lessons I learned forward into my life. But there were also times when all I could do was let go and trust. This is my wish for all who find themselves journeying with anger. May you be active and empowered when you can be, and when you can't, may you find trust. Trust that you won't feel this horrible forever. Trust that you didn't deserve this pain. Trust that you can rest in the warmth of your own self-compassion. And most importantly, trust that your journey will lead you to a stronger, truer version of yourself in the end. May it be so, and blessed be. I invite you to rise now in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 205, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious that grace appeared, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've countless days to sing God's praise, and when we first begun.
We will now extinguish our chalice. Please repeat after me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope. The warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we go forth now into the week ahead with the courage we need to open the door when life knocks. And may we remember that while pain and anger will inevitably come, so too will joy and hope. May it be so, and blessed be.